Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Jessica Lopez. It's episode 31, Friday, October the 31st. Happy Halloween to all of you out there. And hello to everyone out there joining us live in the chat room for the airing of this show. Feel free to throw in your 2 cents, any comments or questions you have about the show. We are out there live with you, chatting it up. All right, today we got some news from John Samai of ISI, some news from Simbin, some cool websites for you to check out when you're not busy racing, that is. And we got some console news from the PS3. We got Midnight Club and Baja Edge of Control. And we got the Mod Squad, of course. They got some new downloads for almost all the Sims out there. This segment is brought to you by Viva Media.
GTR Evolution, now available in stores. Pick up your copy today at Circuit City or Best Buy. Also available online at Amazon.com.
Most of you out there know about the interview I had with Johnny Fatality back on episode 28 of Inside Sim Racing. Mr. Fatality, who is known as the ambassador of esports, leads me to my next topic. I would like to remind all of you out there to be ambassadors of sim racing. Tell your friends, your family, coworkers, anyone you know. Try to get them to try sim racing or to watch our show so they can learn more about it. And just spread the word. The larger that sim racing grows, the larger the sport will be. And speaking of our community, always trying to think of ways of involving you, our viewers, into the show. You guys give us great suggestions and comments in the forums, in the emails, and in the chat room. So we'd like to show some great sim racing moments by you, our audience. When you're out there racing, if you see a great pass or an incredible wreck or bonehead maneuver of the week, record it, send it to videos at InsideSimRacing.tv. I will pick my favorite video and it will air on the show each and every week. Okay, so let me get you guys up to date on what happened. Myself, Sean, and Darren had a chance to meet with the guys from ISI who make rFactor, for those of you that don't know. And I'm gonna bring Darren onto the set to come tell you guys about our experience with ISI.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Hello, by the
Hi.
way. Hi, hello out there.
We had a lot of fun. We were over at the Esquire house in Hollywood Hills, and I got to drive the simulator.
Yeah, I actually saw a celebrity up there too.
I was sitting there driving, and guess who walks in?
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton and his girlfriend.
Nicole from the Pussycat Dolls.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. We had a good experience. And I was actually up there preparing for an interview with John Samai of rFactor. And I learned all about it, learned all about ISI, rFactor, the G-Motor 2 engine, the anticipation of rFactor 2 coming out. Is it coming out or is it not coming out?
Oh, it's definitely coming out. Yeah, we saw it running on a laptop. John Samai's laptop, pulled it out while we were having brunch with him the next day. By the way, thanks for brunch, John. And
did you get to drive it?
No, didn't get to drive it. Saw a 69 Formula One car at Spa. It was bitchin'. It was awesome.
So Sean stole the interview from me and he got to interview John Samai, which he did a great job, by the way. Check out the footage.
Sean Cole for SRT here, and we're in Venice, California, and I have the distinct pleasure of being with John Samai of Image Space Incorporated, makers of rFactor. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And you know, we really got you here. We're under construction here because we're going to be talking about rFactor 2. But I think before we even get to that, I kind of want to go back in time. rFactor's had a great run, still having a great run. I don't even want to call it over. I think it's kind of inspired others. But how do you feel about the success overall of rFactor?
I think rFactor's done really well, and in a lot of ways better than I would have thought. You know, I don't know how many, what are we all, 3 years later, and the excitement, the pace of new development, the people playing new mods is much higher than I would have guessed this many years later.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, on our show, we're covering mods, well, for all sims, but rFactor is sort of always at the front because it's the most mod-friendly sim. Do you have a favorite mod or modder, or anything that really comes to mind when you think of what people have done with your sim?
Well, I can't say that there's any favorites because, you know, I think that, you know, my big push for rFactor, or one aspect that I really championed, was the modding of it, because I really enjoy that. So I always like just to see lots of mods, although, you know, sometimes there's so many that you really can't get into them, but what the best aspect of getting a new mod is when I see someone who's done something I haven't seen before, because I think, oh wow, that's cool and it's clever, and it's sort of like I never thought of that, and it's fun to see. It's kind of like somebody taking something that you came up with and really running with it. And so even if it's something that I personally don't want to play, or it's not the kind of racing or whatever, like recently I grabbed the mod for some other reason, and I noticed that they'd put a new button in there for a showroom, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I'm surprised somebody hadn't done that before, and we sort of wanted to do that, and they're like, hey, they wanted to do something like that, and they just did it, and it was well packaged into the whole system. And again, I don't remember actually what the specific racing was, but so whenever I see new features like that, I'm always kind of impressed and happy to see.
Excellent. Yeah, I can see how that would be flattering on one hand, and also, I think it shows a lot about rFactor and your guys' whole approach, in that you're flattered or you appreciate when someone takes it to the next level instead of being threatened by it, which some companies might take that approach. There was a track, Eastern Creek, and it was, in my knowledge, it was the first laser scan track for rFactor. When I drove it the first time, I thought it really kind of changed things, and we still haven't put our fingers on it. What do you think of laser scanning? Do you know of Eastern Creek? And what's your whole opinion on that method and going about it for track building?
Right. Well, it's definitely a good track. I enjoyed it overall, but certainly the laser scanning allowed for more information to be put into the surface than can be easily done by hand. As a result, I think it was apparent when you drove it. The process itself, and in fact it wasn't the first laser scan track in rFactor, I know of a couple of others, but it's like anything else. When we did some early tracks with some of our previous products, it depends on the information you get. And I know specifically there was one track we did in the early days that it was done with nothing but a brochure.
Right.
That's the extent of the information. And as a result, the modeling wasn't that great. So the better information that goes into it, the more accuracy you can pull out of it.
Right, right. I think we're going to wrap up the rFactor, or at least rFactor 1, if we want to call it, section. But I do have one more question about that. I'm a big lover of the other sims. I don't know if everybody out there knows this, but the G-Motor 2 engine is sort of the base or the engine behind a lot of other sims. So you've got Simbin, who are making some titles using it, the guys from Sim Factory, the Turismo Cartera. When you talked about mods and you like the way they pushed it, do you feel the same way about what these other companies have done with your sim or the base of your sim?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has kind of a different focus and emphasis, and when people want to make a product or they want to get into some aspect of sim racing, they focus on that one aspect. And I think each of those examples that you just cited did that. And we've had other people contact us about licensing and some other groups working on things, and they have their own focus. And I think it's great because they're doing something we can't, and more importantly, kind of we don't want to, because we just don't have that many resources, and we really don't want to be pulled in that many different directions. We've never set out to license our technology. We created a base technology over the last 20 years, and we developed products with it. And people have come to us and said, hey, we want to use either as is or a portion of it or whatever. And in certain circumstances, it makes sense, but it's nothing we ever set out to do.
Right, right. Okay, now let's talk of the future. 6 months ago, Darren had a chance to sit down and talk with you, or stand up and talk with you. And I think back...
I'm not going to stand with him anyway.
I think, and back then it seemed that rFactor 2 was sort of more of an obvious thing to come. You didn't say it was coming for sure, but that obviously, sure, logic would tell you. Are we farther along in that process? Is rFactor 2 something that's come a little further along now?
Well, you've had a chance to take a look at it, so you know that it's not just something in the future. We're obviously making progress. There's something to show and play, and I was able to show you some of the features that were in there. And even with that, we don't have kind of a production plan, and we don't have a feature plan yet either. I mean, there's certainly some aspects that we know we want to do, and but depending on how things go and how much we really want to emphasize certain areas will dictate where we're going. Some obvious aspects, character animations, we have the base technology for in there, and you saw some of that, just random things animating. Now we got to build in the application side of things to apply it, so that things like flags being set in the pit crews and things like that need to be put specific for the specific kinds of racing or whatever. But in general, the technology's there. We've done a lot of weather effects. Some people have seen some of the rain we did for a previous product. That's obviously in there. We've got a really cool sky and weather system. The sun will poke through the clouds, and that will affect the terrain, and people will be able to go in there and decide, well, how much absorption of weather will this have, and how will it play when it rains. And we've got a drying line, so as cars drive by. And so, that's pretty you know, the technology's there, and now it's just a matter of applying it to certain kind of racing. And the other thing that's hard is that it's very generic. You know, you can do anything, but you don't want to do anything because then it becomes really complicated. You know, you got the sun poking through, and you got rain coming, and you've got, you know, drying line, and all. You know, it's a hard thing to manage. You know, it's a hard thing to manage for us, much less people who are trying to make, you know, mods for it or whatever.
Right.
So we really do have to like take this system that's being developed and contain it down. That's the hard part because you want to do a lot, but yet you have to balance making it easy enough to use versus, you know, how powerful it is.
Okay, now you use the words hard to manage. I'm going to just go back over a little what you said there. You talked about animated characters. So what we saw in that video is we saw some cows eating the grass, wagging tails, flash bulbs, those kind of things, and they look spectacular. Now, is that something that would be moddable? So like cars and tracks and everything that's always been moddable in rFactor, is that something people could create their own animated objects and put them on tracks?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the animated system isn't animated characters or pit crews, it's animated objects. So, you know, if you want to, you can do anything with it.
Right. And we saw the lighting effects on the clouds and some of that stuff, but what we didn't really see was 2 hours of driving. Right. One of my favorite things about rFactor is how the shadows would change, and actually corners would change in visually. They'd change where the shadows were, and maybe if you were using a shadow as a braking mark. Will those lighting effects change like the shadows?
Yes, they will. And the sun coming through the clouds is particularly cool. And it really applies because, it's, you know, you go through and it's really sunny and it just has a different look and feel, especially with long shadows. Then all of a sudden the cloud comes, covers the sun, and now everything's gray.
Right.
And you know, you're looking off in distance or you're looking at specific points and whatever, and it does affect what's going on. And our system is working, or we're trying to get the weather system and the overall application, so it takes that data and now applies it to racing. So
Right.
what does that mean? You know, it means, you know, well, does the track temperature change? So, you know, certain parts of the track that are getting more sun or have been tagged as, you know, absorbing sun faster should heat up, and as a result, you know, like going out in the morning is going to be much different than going out at noon, as is in the real world.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, I mean, that's a lot of features. We went away from the visual features. We've kind of moved into more the physical features. Are there physics changes to the car and the behavior and the tracks? I mean, are there a lot of physics changes in general to the game engine?
You know, it's funny. We certainly, our approach has always been kind of incremental. As a developer of software, you know, we developed a base system, you know, 20 years ago or something that had to do with vehicle simulations and used it in non-entertainment aspects. And then once we got into video games, we used the same system. So we've never really thrown away an engine or thrown away, you know, and started over, added. It's always been sort of incremental. But and in this particular case, our next product, retail rFactor 2, had you asked me maybe a year ago, I would have said, well, probably, you know, a better tire model and certainly force feedback and the forces that go into that are the primary things that are going to be worked on. And now that we've had one project in particular that's forced us to really examine that, we've learned a lot. And as a result, the whole system's been, I can't say, it hasn't been thrown away. I mean, it's a good system, but it's certainly been evaluated and restructured, and I think we're going to get some pretty good performance and features out of that. And then, of course, we still have to move back to you know, doing additional work on the tire model and, of course, on force feedback.
Right. Okay. Now, and when I'm kind of getting ahead here, when you do package it up and put a bow on it and make it for sale, is it going to be called rFactor 2, or are you going to have a different name? Do you any thought given to that yet?
That's a good question.
Well, that includes the first part of my interview with John Samai of rFactor, or Image Space Incorporated. Here's a few clips of what we'll have on part 2 coming up next week.
Just joked around with some names, and somebody came up, wasn't me, with rFactor Wide Open. That's what it's called on my computer.
Will it continue to be moddable like rFactor?
For me, how rFactor evolved, you know, opening it up was the key focus for the first product.
So there you have it, part 1 of Sean's interview with John Samai from ISI. He did a really great job.
He did a really good job. And stay tuned for part 2 coming up next week.
Stay tuned for that. We'll have it here on Inside Sim Racing. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we return, I'll have the rest of the top stories of the week. Why didn't you drive the rFactor?
Man, I sure wanted to. We didn't have a wheel set up.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
we're back here on Inside Sim Racing episode 31. Told you guys I had some news from Simbin. STCC, the game, has finally been released on Steam. I had some emails and some people out there asking me if I knew anything about it. So there you have it. It's available worldwide. For those of you who've been dying to get your hands on it, you can now download it on Steam. GTR Evolution has released a patch. This will have some graphic updates and will also fix weight penalty issues. Next time you start the sim, it'll automatically update, so it's very simple. And GTR Evolution has also released a demo that's now available for download. And I'm trying to report on the Simbin news over here, and I can hear the guys over in the other room making a ruckus. They're playing Baja Edge of Control and Midnight Club by Rockstar. So I'm gonna pass it over to them so you can see what they're up to.
Sean Cole with Darren Ganji in the SRT game room. We're here testing out Baja Edge of Control by 2XL Games, distributed by THQ. And about a month ago, we told you about this game, or sim, and it was going to take a little while to give it its full shakedown, but here we are today.
Definitely a sim. Yeah, this is definitely a sim, no doubt about it.
And because it's a sim, we're going to put it through the 12-point SRT category test and give it scores in 12 categories. So we're going to do this a little raw style today. We got Darren driving. I'm going to take you through the first 6 categories while Darren just keeps out there and races. And I'll let you know what both of us think. I think Darren will throw a few comments in as well. But we're going to start things off today with physics. This game is a lot more sim-like than a lot of titles that we've tested on the consoles recently. You've got suspension that really, you can feel the travel. You can make good adjustments inside of the garage. Yeah, Darren here is getting his butt kicked right now, as you can see. And that comes down to the physics as well. In the category of physics, we both actually scored it a 75 out of 100. Now let's talk about graphics. At first we had a little bit of a frame rate issue, and then we turned off the PlayStation smoothing. Isn't that right, Darren?
Yeah, the PlayStation 3 smoothing setting that you can find in the PlayStation 3 settings, if you turn it to off, it definitely helped with the frame rate.
So, and they definitely, even when we got that smoothing turned off, it got better, but it's still a little glitchy at times. So they didn't take full advantage of what the PlayStation 3 can do, and that's a shame. The graphics are nice, and you can see things real clearly, but it looks a little bit like a last generation sim. There's a little depth perception or 3D realism that isn't there compared to a lot of sims. In the category of graphics, Darren and I agreed on this when we both gave it a 70. Next category up is sound. Right now you can hear the classic Spanish guitar going in the background. It's got a good beat. Your girlfriend's gonna love it, as far as it's gonna be her favorite game watching you play or playing it with you. The engine sounds are really good. What do you think, Darren, about the engine sounds?
Yeah, I think it's definitely got some good engine sounds and tire sounds. Yeah. The music is classic Spanish guitar, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
And just like real Baja, you'll transition from dirt onto the asphalt with real traffic, and when you make that sound, it's pretty classic. So. Anyway, for sound, Darren and I both gave it an 85. Presentation and ease of use. Right off the bat, you can't change the name of your player. Whatever your player file is the name of your character in the sim. Also, it wasn't very good at changing the controls. So, Darren, how are you shifting right now?
I'm not. I'm using the automatic because you had to shift with the D-pad.
So if you're using a little joypad, that might be fine. Using a great wheel like we're using, we couldn't get it to use all the controls like we'd use.
Not configurable at all.
And not configurable at all. As well, there's no cockpit view. In fact, you want to cycle to the view closest. This is the first-person view they're using. So you can see it's just kind of a bumper cam. And that's kind of goes there as well. And if this is your favorite view, it doesn't have that as a default. Every time you start a race, you're going to have to cycle through the views to get to this first-person view. Jumped right online and started racing without any hassle. So ultimately, in presentation and easy use, I gave it a 70, Darren gave it a 60. All right, let's talk about fun factor. This thing is very sim-like. You need to drive it. You need to drive it like an off-road truck. You're going to have to drive it. You're going to have to earn your wins. You're going to have to settle for some third places and save up money. The AI are tough. The game is fun. The career mode is great. For fun factor, Darren and I are in total agreement. This sim scores an 85. Car models. There's a ton of vehicles to choose from. The realism is pretty good. You can see the little Baja VW bug here. Pretty good, but they're a little generic at the same time. They could have put a little more work into this category. For car models, I score a 75, while Darren scores at a 70. All right, well, that's the first 6 categories. You know what that means? It's my turn to drive, and Darren's going to get over here and do some talking.
Oh, man. All right, I'll pause it. All right, so Sean's at the wheel now of our Baja buggy. Actually, I was running on his career. I'm going to start off talking about damage. 7th category. Sean's gone through the first 6. Now it's my turn to finish things off here for you. Baja Edge of Control. So yeah, damage is pretty cool. You can't really see what's going on here now. We'll show you some close-up of some damage though, but pretty cool. Flapping doors, stuff like that. Visually, it's decent. Physically generous as far as the damage goes. You can really beat the crap out of these cars and just keep on running. It definitely does affect the way it handles. We love the fenders and the flying, the way the things fly off your car. Like on the trucks, you have a spare tire and it goes flying off. It's pretty cool. So let's see, Sean, we both same on the graphics. By the way, we just rounded up in 5. If you notice, we're at 70, 75, 80. So for damage, we both gave it a 75. All right, next up, we've switched gears a little bit here. We got tracks. Boy, I've seen some major frame rate issues on this one. This is hill climb, and it looks like Sean's in a Jeep. He's not doing too well getting up this hill. Anyway, lots of different tracks, lots of variety, rally style, Baja style, hill climb. He's going to restart that. I'm going to see what he can do again on that. But anyway, awesome off-road action, vast worlds, lots of locales. Actually, I think there's a full open world mode that you can just drive anywhere you want, not actually race. Great terrain, movable objects, lots of variety. No license to real track because they don't have like score or anything like that, or core. But a lot of fun, no question. We both give it 90s in tracks. All right, next up, we're going to talk about multiplayer. Sean's just doing offline right now, but we did some multiplayer earlier. And if there was more racing going on, I mean, if there was actually more people to race, it'd probably be a lot more fun, but only 10 people possible to race at a time. The code seems pretty good. When we went online, we only saw 5 drivers total online, so and this is after a month after this sim came out. So slight lag, but not too bad. The code seems pretty good. Sean, what do you think, man, about the multiplayer?
The multiplayer, it showed a lot of promise, but without the community, it's just not going to be there. Typical PlayStation thing where you just join a random room, not a lot of control, but I mean, I had fun racing against those guys. Kind of, they beat me, or a few of them did, so.
Well, we got some major sound action going on there. So yeah, multiplayer, let's see, Sean rated a 70, I gave it a 65. All right, offline, we're offline right now, running against the AI. How are these guys in hill climb? They pretty tough, Sean?
These guys are nasty in hill climb. They're nasty anywhere, Baja, wherever you go. They're just banging me. I'm like coming to a stop here because they've wrecked me pretty much.
So yeah, AI are definitely pretty tough. We both agree that they definitely give you a run for your money. Let's see, Sean's ninth out of 10 right now. Probably, yeah. You have to select the right truck for the right event, too. So let's see, offline, both of us gave it 90s there, too. Next up, force feedback. It's definitely got a good feel. Not able to adjust anything at all, though. Oh, he didn't make it up to the top of the hill. He's rolling backwards. But overall, it's got a pretty good feel for just a stock random force feedback feel. I wouldn't say it's random. I'm sure they've dialed it in, but it does enhance the drivability, no doubt about it. Definitely need a wheel for that. I'm not sure what a rumble pad would feel like, but this is definitely a game that's wheel required. I'm sure you can play with a gamepad, but you know, this title's got some hits in the gaming community, you know, on sites like GameSpot and stuff like that, and I think it's because it's more of a sim, and it's tough to drive with a gamepad, I would imagine. So anyway, force feedback, Sean gives it an 80, I give it a 75. Looks like Sean's had enough of the hill climb. All right, well, last but not least in our 12-point rating scale, we're going to talk about cost here. And looked around the net. Well, I just went to Amazon.com, and for the PS3 and the Xbox 360, it's going for $60, and that's pretty much the usual going rate for a fairly new title on the PS3, or next-gen console game, I should say. And it offers a career mode, like we talked about. I don't need to go over everything it offers. We pretty much just went over everything. But I think as far as the cost and long-term playability, I think online, you know, multiplayer, it's going to suffer. Offline, there's definitely lots to do, and definitely you're going to get a lot out of it. If you had like a bunch of friends that had a PS3, you can get some cool racing going with this. But it's definitely worth the rental. Not sure about buying it for $60. Maybe after a while it's been out, you can get it cheap on eBay or something like that. But overall, for the cost, we're going to give it a 75. So speaking of overall, that's pretty much going to do it. That's our 12-point rating scale. Sean's doing a little Baja racing here as we go out. Actually, we're going to do some midnight clubbing here. If you guys could see Sean's look on his face, it's priceless right now. But we're going to check out Midnight Club here in a second. But that concludes the Baja Edge of Control review. This is, again, by THQ. 2XL Games is the guys that produced this, and they did a pretty good job. I had actually seen some interviews with them, and they did a lot of work on this physics to this. So looking forward to seeing what they come out with in the future. This overall ratings, Sean gave it a 78.3, and I gave it a 76.25. So 76.
78.3. Yeah. I mean, this is a really good off-road game. I mean, I actually thought the numbers would have come out. I mean, they add up, but I thought it would have been a little higher. This is fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Yeah, no doubt. And it would seem a lot of you know where it really suffers was the graphics. It would seem like it would get a higher rating, but the graphics really suffered. The multiplayer, it suffered a little bit in our rating scale. Cost definitely took a hit. So, but overall, it's fun. It's if you're into off-roading, it's a must-have. If you got a wheel and you're into off-roading, it's definitely worth the $60. If you're into racing, you got all this stuff, worth the rental, no question. You know, go to GameFly. You can rent it for a month if you wanted to for a minimal cost. So, anyway, that's going to do it for this Baja review, and we're going to close this up if I can pull Sean away from it and show you guys what Midnight Club's all about. All right, so I mentioned Midnight Club, and Sean, the lucky one, he gets to do some turning of laps. Actually, I could say doing some street racing. He's running through Los Angeles right here. Sean's favorite town, if you couldn't hear that. But if you know LA, it's very familiar. I mean, a lot of the streets, I mean, it's definitely chopped down. But anyway, this is from Rockstar. I didn't mention that. Again, Midnight Club Los Angeles. And Rockstar, makers of Grand Theft Auto. Most of you know that. Very popular game. We love it. But basically, it's like the Grand Theft Auto world, and you go street racing. Sean's chasing that guy down right now. But it's street racing in Grand Theft Auto world. Works with a wheel. That's why we got it. So it's definitely a sim-like title, and we're going to be rating it as a sim. Not here on this show. We've only had it for a day or two, but wanted to show you guys what it was all about, give you a little teaser of it. Sean just won his race to the start of the race. Yeah, so Sean, your initial thoughts, man. What do you think?
This is fun. I love the world environment of this Rockstar game and being able to race on it. We always talked about Grand Theft Auto. What if you could race on it for real? And online, they sort of had pseudo races, but nothing like this.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool, man. It's amazing the places you can go and the things you can do. There's no carnage like Grand Theft Auto, so you can't kill people. But the wrecks are pretty amazing. You can take on a lot of damage. Your car takes on damage, and you have like a damage meter, and there's turbo and stuff like that. So it's definitely got a lot of arcade elements. But it's a lot of fun. I haven't taken it online yet. I'm looking forward to checking that out. But it's full career mode. You start with buying either a Scirocco, old school Scirocco like 80s, Sean's in that right now, front-wheel drive, 240SX or a 83 GTI Rabbit. All are pretty beat up, but those are your starting rides. And look, you got a cockpit view, lots of different views to choose from. You can go anywhere you want in this world. You don't have to do the races. You can just drive aimlessly and just cruise. You know, check out. I had my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, and her friends over here the other night just driving, learning to drive. They were driving on the freeway, and Sean's going a little out of control here. But anyway, Midnight Club by Rockstar Games, and again, that's a quick preview. Showed you some close-up footage there. Hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to do another review, and we're going to do a review like we did on Baja Edge on next week's show, covering Midnight Club by Rockstar. Midnight Club, Los Angeles. Say bye, Sean.
Later. Have fun.
Back to Jessica, guys.
Looks like Sean and Darren are having a lot of fun playing. I hope that they let me squeeze in and barge in on their little game playing. I want to play the Midnight Club, see if I can find some familiar spots in LA, maybe cruise down Sunset or something when I'm done here filming the show. Okay, so I told you guys that we have some websites for you to check out when you're not too busy racing. One of them is simracingworld.com. They've got lots of news, mods, and all sorts of different content for you to check out. So go to simracingworld.com, and we got racedepartment.com as well. They have all sorts of racing, and they're adding leagues using GTR Evolution. So once again, that's racedepartment.com. Now for today's Mod Squad news, if you love prototypes, you can go to rFactor Central. They have a car, it's the Epsilon Euskadi by Indu Racers. Indu Racers have made this fine mod that features the 650 horsepower Judd powered Spanish racer. Over at Virtual R, they announced the GTR Evolution Track Pack. This track pack features updates to lighting and saturation to a handful of tracks. And what a difference a little proper coloring can make. Also at Virtual R is the announcement of the Work in Progress MMG World Racing Challenge. The World Racing Challenge will include road cars from all around the globe that can be upgraded with a variety of parts, such as body kits, engines, and other tuning possibilities. This will certainly be a hot download when it is complete. Last week we told you about Miller Motorsports Park by MotorFX for GTR2. Well, that track has been converted to a newer version for Race 07. You can go to No Grip Racing for the version of that track. Head on over to superspeedway.net. They have a cool new sound pack coming out for NASCAR 2003. This audio mod will give you the voice of both of the crew chief and the spotter of the number 55 NASCAR driven by Michael Waltrip. Go on over to superspeedway.net or rubbins-racing.com for more information on that audio mod. rFactorCentral.com, they have a lot of mods, a lot of content for us sim racers out there, and they were having a donation drive, which I heard went successful. And if rFactor has made any of your sim racing experiences more pleasurable, please head on over to their website and donate to the cause. Support the community. And we have this Logitech wheel that we were hoping to review this week, but we were waiting for the Ferrari Challenge and have yet to receive that. So when it comes in, we'll play Ferrari Challenge with the Wii Wheel, and we'll tell you all about it here on Inside Sim Racing. That's going to wrap it up for episode 31 of Inside Sim Racing. Thanks to everyone for joining us live in the chat room. Have a happy Halloween. Be safe out there if anybody's planning on going out or doing anything.
Also subscribe on YouTube.
Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube if you haven't become a subscriber yet. And
don't forget to come back next week for part 2.
Part 2 of Sean's interview with John Samai from ISI. Make sure to tune in next week for part 2 of that interview. That's going to wrap it up. I'm Jessica Lopez. The checkered flag is out, and so am I.